the first question was around, how do we do repairs while not being hard on ourselves? I don't know if we can prevent ourselves from being hard on ourselves, but welcoming that part as it shows up, and something I wanted to share around that. I'll share how I do repairs, a little bit about that, and then the part about not being hard on ourselves. I want to remind us that repairs are not necessarily for us. When things feel glitchy and out of whack and we've missed a client and we feel that we're off and we're usually doing pretty well together, it does feel unsettling for most of us. Of course we feel hard on ourselves. We care, right? We want things to feel good. That's a survival desire. It's wired in. And so if things feel off, we get to feel comfortable with them feeling off. When we're working with clients with a lot, I want to veer away from saying a lot of trauma. Trauma is just trauma. When we're working with clients who have trauma, we have to get used to it being glitchy, because they're bringing to our relationship things that they're experiencing outside of our sessions. And so it might just feel off a lot. And so not being hard on ourselves can be helpful. So I want to remind us that these things rarely have to do with anything we did in the present moment, and a lot to do with their history, their past, their primary caregiver relationships, and so much that they've experienced in their lives. When there's possibility for repair, it can be incredibly healing, an experience that we give them that maybe they have never gotten in their entire lives. So just notice, either if it's us noticing something feels off, I really missed you, I missed something. Let's make some space for this. Or maybe they bring it to us. This happened, it didn't feel good. For someone to be like, absolutely, let's sit with that. Let's welcome it. I'm here for it. I'm here to take responsibility for my part of it. Most people that I work with have never had anyone in their lives take a breath. Yeah, that happened. Most people will respond by getting defensive, throwing up a wall, spinning it back on them, trying to make it right. Any level of anything that is the opposite of taking a breath. It's just kind of how we, in our culture, the culture that I live in, have been trained to do it. So this culture here, we know how to take a breath. That breath can be everything for someone. That we're not going to make them wrong, shut them down, pull our energy away, punish them if something was off. That can heal a lifetime of misses and misattunement. So it helps us not be hard on ourselves to know this might not actually fully be about what happened between us. It likely has to do with, like, a level of reactivity has to do with an entire history of being missed, invalidated, dismissed, and tried to make wrong. When we know that, it's easier to show up in our leadership role and just take it, whatever they're mad about, whatever they're hurt about, whatever they're upset about, with compassion, even to know what's hysterical is historical, right? And that doesn't mean I don't take responsibility for my part in it, but I also don't have to take on the last 10, 20, 30, 40 years of my client's history. We could just meet the moment together. It's a lot easier to put our egos aside and take things less personally when we know this, when they're actually likely feeling safe enough to bring something to us and say, hey, this was off. It's so rare to have someone safe enough to be like, I didn't like what you did there, or this didn't feel good, or I needed something different. That might mean they feel safe enough with us to just place that between us. And so it's such an honor to be able to tend to that with them, to give the gift of that healing experience, For me, it's not a burden. It's not annoying. It's none of those things. It's like, oh, look at this whole history that just showed up with us. And I pushed a bruise, or I pushed a button. Of course I did. That's what I invite here in my work. I want it to show up here. And so that's the best thing I could say in terms of how do we not be hard on ourselves, is we remember that this isn't just about us. It's actually an invitation for connection, presence, and healing. And we are allowed to be messy. We're allowed to fuck shit up as much as like it happens, because we're human. The more rigid we are, the less connected we are. The more ourselves we are, the more we're going to miss some things because we're a little more at ease. This is a perfect recipe for healing. If we're not available in this way as human beings, stuff isn't going to come up as it needs to. So we just know that that's part of our job. And it's, for me, it doesn't have to be for everyone, but it feels like it's one of the deepest services of my job. It's the last thing I want to say about this, because I have like a whole video, I think you can find it on my blog, on like a 19 steps to making a repair. It's kind of ridiculous, but I think it's helpful. Is the acknowledgement that happened. I'm just going to leave you with that. Like, that is the most important part of the repair, that we see together that their reality is real. That happened. How tools don't necessarily get the results the relationship does. And what I mean by that is, okay, the tools can totally get results. Like, even if the clients hate us, tools are really, really, really powerful. The point I want to hit home is when we add the element of understanding how powerful the therapeutic relationship is, and the more trauma informed we are, the tools can be even more powerful and sustainable and integratable. So it doesn't have to be one or the other, but the power of them both together makes these tools invaluable. It's the experience of like just doing a tool and an experiment versus we're in this together. I'm here with you in this experience. I'm welcoming every part. And then we're showing them how to do that when they're out in the world doing that on their own. It's so different. It's a different way we carry that with us. So you might have noticed when I guide the regulation practices, I'm trying to do this more when I lead meditations. If you took Expand, you'll notice that my cues are all over the place, because I used to say the body and like have this very outward observer meditative guidance instruction. And now I'm trying to use we a lot more. It's very hard for me to shift gears when I'm guiding meditation, but in the regulation work, it's super easy. And it's, a lot of people are like, oh, well, then I can just go do this by myself at home. And the whole part of the regulation work is the we part. All the other things are just fluff. The most important is how I'm guiding, how I'm with people. If I'm like guiding and I'm secretly over here on my phone, you'll feel that. And so it's in the, we're putting our support here. We're in this together. We're welcoming all the parts. That enhances the tools by so much, because healing is in the relationship. Healing is how we are moving through life together, how we're learning about ourselves together, how we're growing together. Well, this is why people come to us to pay us money. It's not just tools, it's they choose us. They might interview 10 people that do the same thing, but they're not interviewing based on the tools they use. Maybe they're looking for an EMDR therapist, if that was even a thing. EMDR is just a tool. They're looking for the relationship to feel safe enough. And so if we know that, we can use it to our advantage and to their advantage and really be present with them. And if you were watching the training last Tuesday, I did a big talk on like how we know when to use those tools. They are so powerful, but there's a way that we can be so deeply present, and then the tool just kind of jumps out of the file cabinet behind us. Or there's a way we can be sitting with a client and being like, and then we're sifting through the file cabinet, which intervention, which tool, what thing should we do next? And we're not present anymore. And so with enough practice and enough being at home, enough sitting back, leaning back, those files just come out and hit us in the head and we go, oh, let's try this. It's a much different process. And I know a lot of you are getting so used to that. It's just a little shift. So it's mostly just the how we use the tools, how we're in relationship to the tools, and know that when we bring that element of the healing relationship, it makes it that much more powerful. So I just wanted to add that.